Good morning, Sports Ethos, and welcome to another edition of DFS Today. This is your Friday, February 25th edition. We are back. I am Santino Cocoon, and I am joined by the one and only Friday night. I couldn't think of a word that starts with F. That is awesome. But Freak Star? Question mark? Does that work? I don't know. But David Menkoff is our great co-host tonight. How you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic. It's been a long All-Star break, and I'm excited to jump back into the NBA action with you.
I am as well, and I'm glad that you didn't question or say what is a freak star. So that is that is a plus right here. But yeah, it's been a long week, and I don't remember All-Star weeks being legit 1 week completely off, but I kind of liked it. I liked the full week off, the rest, reset mode. We got a ton of news on Wednesday, even more news on Thursday. But everybody just pretty much was quiet for 6.5 days there, and now we're back. We're back right back into it with a third of the season left. And we'll get right. We're going to jump right into it. We got a lot of games to go tonight. It's weird how this one works. We have most of our games starting at 7 p.m., 7:38. Just one late 10 p.m. game, 2 9 p.m.s. We have a nice slate here for you. 9-game slate, but 6 of them start 8 p.m. or sooner. 5 of them start 7:30 or sooner. So this is going to be interesting for everybody there. And before we get into it, I want to let everybody know that we have a new DFS partner here. If you haven't been listening, you might not know, but if you have, you do know. And that is Thrive Fantasy. So prop up with Thrive Fantasy on their mobile app or at thrivefantasy.com. Use code ETHOS, that's ETHOS, when you sign up to get a 100% deposit match bonus on your first deposit, up to $100, plus either 2 or 4 free game tickets to play. You pick player props on the biggest names playing every night, score points when your props hit, and the players with the most props win a share of the nightly prize money at the end of the night. All right, buddy. Without further ado, let's get into this nice game slate here. The first game on the docket is the Toronto Raptors at the Charlotte Hornets. We have a 226.5 game total, and the Raptors are 2-point road favorites. On the injury report, we have Isaac Bongo, David Johnson, both out. Gordon Hayward, Kai Jones, Scotty Lewis, all out as well. Jalen McDaniels, Nick Richards, both doubtful. Fred VanVleet, questionable. Cody Martin, probable. Yes, that is both teams combined. I'll throw this over to you. I think Fred VanVleet said he was going to play, so even though he says questionable, I would say closer to probable. But I'll throw it over to you, buddy. What are you looking at on this Toronto side, first game back?
Yeah, first game back. This is a fantastic little matchup here in terms of a pace perspective going up against the Raptors. Going up against the Hornets, sorry. First game back, it's hard to get back into it. But when it comes down to it, Fred VanVleet, you mentioned he's going to likely play in this one at 800. He poses a great double threat every night. I do expect him to put up a strong performance here against the Hornets, against his backcourt. So I do have some interest there. I'm also going to be looking at Gary Trent Jr. 6,500. He's been pretty much hot and cold over the last month before their All-Star break. I expect him to really shoot the ball well. The Hornets do give up quite a bit of threes. That they rank among the lowest in the league in terms of 3-point opposition. So I do like Gary Trent as well, 6,500. That's a great mid-tier price tag to round it out with VanVleet. And finally, I also going to throw some love at Pascal Siakam, who's been playing fantastic before the All-Star break. Despite a couple of slightly down performances over his last 2 games. Before that, he was putting up near triple doubles on a nightly basis. So I like all 3 of those guys in this matchup. And I really feel strongly that all 3 are going to be firmly in play for me.
Yeah, and we have about 40 2% of we have 4 of the 9 spreads right now, and this is the highest one. And I'm with you. Like I don't mind spending 9,300 on Siakam. He's been playing really well even before the break. Charlotte's going smaller ball lately. They outside of Plumlee, they don't really have a backup center. Now they traded for Trez Harrell, but he's not really center height. He's not tall enough, big enough. So Siakam at 9,300 does make a lot of sense, especially if Van Vliet doesn't play. But as I mentioned, he's questionable. They assume him to play. He should be playing. I think he's more probable than questionable. But I'm with you. I think Trent Jr. was on fire before the All-Star break. I don't think he'll get that crazy. He had 2 games over 40 points, one almost 60. I don't think he's going to be that crazy, but at 6,500, he makes a lot of sense. I think you could throw in OG, Scotty Barnes. Like that starting 5 is going to play a ton of minutes if you haven't been paying attention. They've been playing a ton of minutes lately. Boucher, Thad Young, Precious, Birch, all these guys are going to pitch in the rest of the minutes, but I don't mind throwing in any of those top 5 guys that are going to be playing 30 plus minutes, maybe even 40 plus minutes in a game against Charlotte, who just runs up and down the court and is giving up a ton of points. It's pretty much just like a pickup game of just how fast you can run and score points against them. So I am totally on board with what you were saying on that side. And then on the other side, it's slightly different because Toronto is a very good defensive team. The pace is going to be picked up regardless. When you're playing Charlotte, the pace is always going to be picked up. So it's just a matter of who's going to be contributing on that end. With Gordon Hayward out, there's still a open spot in the lineup. Cody Martin is currently probable, so he could potentially jump back into the starting lineup. We've been seeing PJ Washington start, Kelly Oubre start, different lineups maintaining that, but Cody Martin was starting before he got injured, so I would keep a certain eye on that if he joins the starting lineup. If he does, he could be potentially seeing 30-plus minutes at only 3,800, and that is obviously a play that you want to attack there. PJ Washington, if he gets to start again, 5,300, makes a lot of sense because he's going to play a lot of 4. He's going to play backup minutes at the 5 there as well, with Jalen McDaniels doubtful in this one. So that's a very possible outcome to continue to look at PJ Washington. Kelly Oubre Jr., if he starts for me, I do like him at 6K. Not too high on LaMelo, Rozier, or Bridges at their price tag, just because there's a lot of other options that I like there. But I am looking at Plumlee potentially at 5,200. We'll see. But Martin, PJ Washington, and potentially Oubre Jr. are the 3 guys that I'm looking at. I want to see who gets that start and what the minutes are from there. But those are the 3 I'm looking at. How about you, buddy?
Yeah, I'm definitely in alignment here when it comes to the Hornets side of the ball. Cody Martin should be a smash, a value play at 3,800. Like you mentioned, he is coming back. He has missed quite a few games now, the last 6 games leading up to the All-Star break. So he should be well rested, should be healed up nicely. I do expect him to be in those high minutes, high 20s and low 30s minutes potentially here. So he's one of my favorite value plays on the entire slate. In terms of the other guys that I'm looking at on the Hornets, I do like some PJ Washington as well. The 300 it's a nice mid-tier price tag, coming off an absolute monster performance. We had almost 40 fantasy points and played almost 48 minutes. I don't expect another one of those type of high-minute outings, but I do expect him to get plenty of run as well. So I do like him. And then you mentioned finally Kelly Oubre Jr. at 6,000, also going to be a guy that I'm looking at. I've already targeted quite a few mid-tier guys, but this is definitely one of the games you mentioned, the highest game total, and something that I really want to target. So those are the 3 guys that I'm looking at. And I'm good with fading LaMelo Ball at 9,600. I've been big on LaMelo Ball for most of the slates. He's coming off a triple-double in his last game before the All-Star break, but I don't expect a repeat performance here against the Raptors. I don't see him generating that kind of offense here against this Raptors squad.
All right, I like it. 1 game, 1 alignment. We'll jump on to the next one. We have the San Antonio Spurs taking on the Washington Wizards. We don't have a spread for this one, but we do have an injury report for the Spurs. and Wizards. I'll combine them again. Bradley Beal, Joel Ayayi, Devontae Kaycock, Joe Weiskamp, Porzingis, Isaiah Todd, all out. Thomas Bryant, questionable. Josh Primo, Romeo Langford, also questionable. And that is it. We have Cassius Winston actually available, but I'll throw it over to you, man. What are you looking on the Spurs side of the ball here? I was going to say the spread, but I already mentioned we don't have one.
Yeah, the Spurs are an interesting team here. This is a great matchup against the Wizards. DeJounte Murray, 10,800, highest priced guy, one of the highest priced players on the entire slate for good reason. He's so talented. Triple-double, walking triple-double, game in and game out. Against this very same team, he put up 47 fantasy points, nearly had a triple-double, as I mentioned, in their last meeting. I do expect him to reach that mark here against the Wizards. Probably my favorite play probably one of my favorite high-priced plays on the night here. And then as far as anyone else in the Spurs, it's really tough to rely on anyone else from a fantasy perspective. I do like Devin Vassell at 5K. He's definitely going to be in play for me. He's starting to get a little bit more keys to the offense now with Derek White out of the lineup. He's starting to get minutes in the 30s consistently. He's not being shy. He's being able to distribute the ball, get some rebounds as well. So I do like Devin Vassell as well. And that's pretty much it for me as far as my interest on the Spurs. Jakob Poeltl is priced pretty fairly at 7,300. I'm not going to be going there, even though it's a great matchup. There are some other guys in that 7K range that I'd much rather have in my lineups. So I'm really going to be only targeting DeJounte Murray as my favorite play, and then I'm going to sprinkle in some Devin Vassell as well to round it out.
Yeah, and I'm close to you. I don't know how much Murray I'll have just because he's pretty high priced in it is a good matchup, but I don't know if I want to go 11K for him. But Poeltl as well. I do really like Poeltl in this matchup. 7.3 is just a bit pricier. His price went up 3K from the last time we saw him play. He did have a 2017 in 5 games, so it makes sense. But the price went up to 7.3, a little bit higher than I want to pay for him. With that said, I still like him here. I'm not going to go seeking him out. I'm not going to go put Poeltl in my lineup and say, okay, I'm going to build around him. But if I'm around that price tag and I see near 7K for my center that I have available, I'm perfectly fine with throwing Poeltl in there. But I'm with you also on Vassell, 5K. The guy's getting a lot of minutes right now. There is no Derek White to potentially challenge him for minutes. His last game, he had 15, 5, and 6. I can see him continually upping his not minutes, but his production while he's now the starting shooting guard and now more responsibility for him. So I do really like Vassell while he's still 5K. And then Lonnie Walker Jr. at 39K. He's also getting a lot of minutes. The last 3 games he's played 30, 26, and 28 minutes. He's taken 13, 17, and 16 shot attempts. And I'll say 17, 21, and 17 actual points scored. So he's taking on a bigger role as well, not just Vassell, but Lonnie Walker is taking on a bigger role as well. That's like 33 minutes that is available, and most of it is going to both of these guys, and all the opportunity is going to these guys. So I really like Vassell at 5K, and then Lonnie Walker, if you want to take a shot at just a cheaper guy under 4K, he's very, very solid here for me as well. On the other side of the ball, Porzingis, it's funny. They said Porzingis was, when they traded him, he's about to play. You thought he was going to play right after the All-Star break. Now he's not even really taking contact or playing 5-on-5. So it's very, I don't know what the judgment or ruling is on him, but I don't honestly expect him to play anytime soon now. I thought he was going to. When they first traded for him, they made it sound like he was 1 or 2 games off. And now it sounds like he's more weeks than days. So I doubt he's going to be playing anytime soon. When they first traded for him, that's what I thought. But then all the reports were different. But that's another story. Outside of that, we have Thomas Bryant questionable. So that is very intriguing for a guy like Daniel Gafford at 3,400. If Thomas Bryant doesn't play, This is the only true center on the team at 3,400 against the Spurs. Pirtle is very solid defensive center, but I would take Gafford a lot in this one. And then that also jumps back to Denny Avia, Advia, and then Anthony Gill. More so Advia. He's going to be playing a lot of center if Thomas Bryant doesn't play there. At 5,100, I would take a lot of chances on him as well. Kyle Kuzma, I'm not really going to look at 8,900. You mentioned Murray over there at about 900 more. I would just much rather take that upside there. But Advia is a guy I'm looking at in case Thomas Bryant doesn't play. Even if he does play, I think he's still going to play a decent amount of minutes to where 5,100 isn't killing us. Though I do rather prefer Vassell there. But I'm very intrigued on Thomas Bryant's availability because Gafford and Advia become plays that are super crucial to me at 5,100 and 3,400. You can take chances on both of them. Raul Neto at 4,700. If he can play 28 minutes again, that's intriguing. But if him and Ish Smith are going to be splitting 24-24 down the middle, I don't really want to do that. Right now, the only two guys I'm looking at are Gafford and Advia, depending on Bryant's availability. If Bryant does play, not so much Advia, but Gafford still is in play at 3,400. He should still see half the minutes there for me. What are you looking at on this side of the ball?
Yeah, you mentioned a couple guys. Gafford is definitely going to be a strong play. He's highly valuable and a very low price tag, especially if we get news that Bryant's out. He should get plenty of minutes. 3,400 is a great price tag, one of the best value plays potentially on the board. If we get the news around Bryant early on in the day, that'll help us make that decision a little bit easier. I'm not as big of a fan of Danny Avia as well. At 5,100, I think he's just a little bit too high priced, in my opinion, in terms of what his potential is. He definitely has shown a lot of upside, and he has been getting a lot of consistent minutes recently, minutes over 30 over his last few games. But I don't know if I see him continuing to put up those kind of numbers in this spot at 5,100. I'd rather go elsewhere against a Spurs team. And then the guy I'm actually looking at as well from value perspective is potentially Ish Smith, coming off a game where he had 15 points, 2 rebounds, 6 assists, put up almost 30 fantasy points. A guy that has shown in his ability playing the backup point guard role in his career and getting minutes. If he gets minutes in the high 20s or low 30s, I do like Ish Smith quite a bit at 4,200 as well for some additional value play. But other than that, there's no one else really I'm going to be going after. Kyle Kuzma 8,900 is a little bit too high of a price tag for me to trust Kyle Kuzma. I'd much rather have him at the low 8K range. And that's pretty much it for me when we're talking about the Wizards.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Oh, I don't know what was happening. I was trying to talk to you. That was very weird. I was talking. I was saying the other game, and then I heard you say any other interest, and I was like, oh, I don't know what happened, but I will edit this out, so no worries. Yeah, the next game at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the Oklahoma City Thunder taking on the Indiana Pacers at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We don't have a spread for this one. The Thunder are on the back end of a back-to-back, one of the few teams. The Pacers, on the injury report, we have Goga, Brogdon, both probable. Duarte, questionable. Isaiah Jackson, also probable. McConnell, Rubio, Miles Turner, Warren, all out. On the Thunder, we had Dort, Kenrick Williams, Ty Jerome, Muscala, James Robinson are all out for this one. Also, KZ Okpala. Williams, Jerome, Dort. I don't know if they're going to be out for this one. This was just a one game. The other guys likely out. For the Pacers, this is the first game back, so Brogdon probably playing, Jackson probably playing. Duarte, I don't know. Mutadze, I don't know as well. Don't have an injury report for this one, but I will throw it over to you. And I'm sorry for that, the not answering before, but we'll edit that out. I was talking and I was like, why isn't he hearing me? It must have been on mute or something. I didn't think I was, but I'll throw it over to you. What are you looking at on this Thunder side of the ball? And I don't know if, honestly, I don't know if Shai is going to play it back to back. We don't know what's going to happen, but we'll just assume that most of these guys are going to be healthy.
Yeah, the Thunder are interesting, especially since it's the second night of a back-to-back. It's hard to trust the lineup. If Shai is healthy, I have no problem going for him at 9K. He's a guy that we've seen in the past can go for 50 pretty consistently if he's healthy and ready to go. He definitely has that high upside, especially playing alongside Josh Giddey, the young rookie, the promising rookie. He's been getting into kind of a groove there with the two of them. So I do like Shai at 9K. I'll probably have a little bit of interest there. And then I also really like Alexei Pokusevski, 4,700, a guy that's been getting a lot of minutes recently. I've really been targeting him quite a bit. I liked him a lot when he was priced in the 3K, low 4K range. 4,700 is a little bit too high a price, but he's still under 5K. So I'm gonna have some interest in Alexei here. It's a good opportunity for him to really play well and show the Thunder squad the ability that he's able to get additional minutes, and hopefully down the stretch he gets additional minutes as well. So those are the two guys I'm going to be looking at. It's going to be Shai, Gilgeous Alexander, and like I mentioned, Alexei Pokusevski. Those are the two names I'm looking at on the Thunder side. I'm probably going to be fading Josh Giddey, although I don't want to 8,300. I just don't think that I don't think he has that same triple-double upside we saw before the All-Star break with Shai back in the lineup.
Yeah, and to me, it's all dependent. If Shai doesn't play, Bazley at 6,400, he's been playing really, really well without a lot of these guys in the lineup. 3 straight games before that last one, before the on the 16th, before the All-Star break, of over 40 points. And at 6,400, I can look at him there. Josh Giddey would be coming playing me again in this matchup if Shai doesn't play. I don't know if he's going to play in a back-to-back. We're not sure. I would assume Dort is going to be good. Williams is going to be good. Favors might not be good at 3,400. And to me, you mentioned Pokusevski at 4,700. I'm also looking at Isaiah Roby at 4,300, who I think would draw the start at center, assuming Derek Favors doesn't play on the back end of a back-to-back. Like, he hasn't really done that all year. So I would expect Roby to get that start. And at 4,300, this guy's proven that when he gets the time, that his fantasy numbers are pretty good. So I'm looking at those 3 guys. Aaron Wiggins at 3,600. If other people continue to miss, if, say, again, Dort, Williams miss again, Shai misses on the back end of a back-to-back, I'll look at Aaron Wiggins. I'll look at possibly Trey Mann, but it all depends on what the injury report says, because the Thunder are just honestly a crapshoot. Tomorrow we might see Giddey, Shai, most of the Williams again, Favors, Jerome, all these guys again out, and then who knows? Giddey might be out too. The Thunder are just playing for ping pong balls at this point. But Roby, I do think starts, because I in my expectation, Favors is going to miss this back end of back-to-back. He's the one guy I can call that's going to miss it. And then who knows? Tomorrow it's going to happen that everybody else but Favors is ruled out. But I'm with you. I think Giddey is in play, depending on Shai. If Shai does play, I'm not going Giddey. I'm not going Bazley. I'm not going Mann. I'm not going most of these guys. But Roby is the one guy I do think is going to have value regardless, because I expect Favors not to play in the back-to-back. But I can't account for anybody else, to be honest. On the other side of the ball, this is going to be a fun matchup if we get a lot of fantasy value here. We might get a bunch of people missing, might get a bunch of people in. We don't know. I do expect Jackson and Brogdon to play. Batadze probably is going to play. Don't think Duarte is, but who knows? With that said, I'm going to lean off of Halliburton and Brogdon just because no one's seen them play together yet. I think they're going to be very solid together. Both these guys can play on and off the ball, so I think it's going to be a very nice pairing, but we need to see it more on the DFS side before we're going to pay nearly 9K for Halliburton or over 7K for Brogdon, who hasn't played in what feels like forever. Buddy Hield is the next highest option there at 6'3", and with Brogdon back, I assume, I'm not really going to pay that much for Buddy Hield as well. That's a lot of playmaking and responsibility go to the other 2 guys in the backcourt. So I'm going to leave those 2 alone. Then it's just a matter of who's actually going to start and who's not. Isaiah Jackson is very intriguing to me. Out of the front court options, Batatse, Taylor, Jalen Smith, Brissett, all of these guys, I really like Jackson the most. I think his fantasy upside is just tremendous when he gets the minutes. We haven't really seen the minutes lately because he only played 12 minutes when he came back from that injury and then got hurt. But in those 12 minutes, he had 11 points, 1 rebound, and 3 steals. This guy is just extremely efficient on the year. He's shooting over 54% from the field. And you just look at his game log and you look at his stats when he's getting minutes. The last game before that last one, before he got hurt, he took 19 shots, made 12 of them. He 26 points, 10 rebounds. He can grab rebounds. He is very solid on the defensive end with stocks. And he's just extremely efficient. So Jackson in this matchup at 5,600, if he's ready to go, which he says he's probable, and he practiced on Wednesday, Thursday, he looked good. 5,600, even if he doesn't start, he's my preferred option in that front court of just all of these guys. And he's probably the only guy on the team that I can really trust because I don't know what's going to shake out with Brogdon coming back and Duarte potentially coming back. I'll just see what happens on the injury report before I can make a determination on the rest. But how about you, buddy? What are you looking at on Indiana side?
Oh, it was me this time. This time it was completely on me. I was going into a full-on diatribe on mute. Apologies, everyone.
It's fine. It's a week off. We're both we're both a little rusty here.
There's a little bit of rust here. It's okay. It's okay. As far as the Pacers go, I was just saying that I'm not going to be targeting really anyone. It's just there's too many cooks in the kitchen on both sides. In the backcourt, you mentioned Brogdon coming back. Curious to see how he's going to play with Tyrese Halliburton. I think they can both coexist from a DFS perspective, but I'd much rather fade them for tonight's games just because there's 9 games on the slate. I'd much rather go with much safer options in that 7 to 8K range. Same thing with the front court. I know you mentioned Isaiah Jackson as a fantastic potential play at 5,600. He is probable in this one. I don't know how much I can trust him with so many other guys in that front court with O'Shea Brissett, with Jalen Smith in there in the mix as well. They're all priced in the same range. Curious to see how they're going to run out the lineups, how many minutes each are going to be able to have here. It's a great opportunity, great matchup against the Thunder. I don't know if I trust anyone really as far as this front court goes. Chris Duarte at 5,500 is also priced a little bit too high. If he comes back, I'm curious to see how he plays. Along with all of these guys. So there's just too many question marks for me to really tackle anyone. I'm good fading everyone on the Pacers side.
All right, buddy. We're going to the last game at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time now. The Houston Rockets at the Orlando Magic. No spread for this one. We have Usman Garuba, Bol, Markelle Fultz, Jonathan Isaac, Maurice Wagner, all out for this one. I'll throw it over to you. What are you looking at on the Houston side of the ball?
Yeah, on the Houston side of the ball, it's interesting. I do have some interest in Kevin Porter Jr. He's been out for a little while, and Dennis Schroeder's been getting a lot of run, but I do like him. I think the fact that he's rested as well coming into this game against the Magic, we've seen he has double-double upside. He's been getting 8 assists a game over 3 out of his last 4 games as well. So that's something to keep in mind. And we do know he has upside to get to 50 fantasy points, and he's priced at only 6,700 in this one, which is a fantastic price tag for Kevin Porter Jr. just because of his high upside potential here. So I do like him. As far as anyone else in the Rockets, I do have some shares and some interest in Jalen Green at 5,000. The rookie is starting to come into his own. He's been getting a little more confidence over his last handful of games, putting up fantasy numbers. And really driving this young Rocket squad. Of course, they're driving them into the lottery, but also driving them as far as getting more playing time as well, averaging over 30 minutes a game over his last 5 as well. So that's something to keep in mind. So I do like Jalen Green at 5K. And then up front, I do have some interest as well in Christian Wood, 700, going up against Wendell Carter and Mo Bamba. he hasn't been showing a lot of upside over his last few games, but I think this is a perfect opportunity, a perfect game for him to come back and really thrive here. So I do like Christian Wood. In terms of preference, Kevin Porter Jr. my favorite play, followed by Jalen Green, and finally rounding out with some Christian Wood support as well. Any interest in Kevin Porter Jr.?
Yeah, and I actually like Kevin Porter Jr. here. It's just about a year that this guy's been a starting point guard in the NBA, and he's made a lot of strides. His efficiency is obviously not great. So far, he's shooting 38% from the field on the year. But again, he came into the league as a wing, more of a small forward / shooting guard than a point guard. Then got released, got signed by the G League of the Rockets. Came over, put numbers up on there, and then he's now a starting point guard in the league. And he's been pretty good. He made a lot of improvements from coming from not a guy who's been a point guard in his entire life to now a starting point guard in the NBA, the highest level of basketball out there. And I do like him here at 6,700 against I don't want to say bad Magic team, but I don't know another word for it. But a bad Magic team. So I do like 6,700. I think that's a solid price tag for him. I am on board with the Kevin Porter Jr. here. With everybody else playing, I'm not super sure who I want to attack there. You mentioned Jalen Green at 5K. I think that's a decent price tag in this particular matchup. I don't normally target him, but I think he can get 14, 15 shots up, and that'll be some nice value there if he can get there. Outside, if he doesn't get that, he doesn't do much else to provide at 5K, but I do think he can get there. And then Şengün at 4,300 is a guy I'm looking at because we know that Wendell Carter Jr. starts at power forward. Mo Bamba starts at center a lot on the Magic team. So there's a potential for them to go bigger, the Rockets. They have the opportunity to do that. Şengün should be a guy that they're focusing on. So at 4,300, even if he doesn't draw the start, I would expect him to draw extra minutes in a matchup that the Magic like to play bigger. So he's another guy I'm looking at, and especially if he does draw the start, and we'll know that before any games tip off, then I'm very intrigued by him at 4,300. But outside of that, I'm with you on Porter Jr. He's the guy that I like the most here. On the other side of the ball, again, you're playing against the team that's playing for ping pong balls, so there's not much to go on the way of defensive end. I do really like Okeke. I don't love how his price tag is 4,700 now. It's higher than it's been recently. 4,600 was the highest he was before the break, but before that, it was 43, 4. He was around that 4K mark. He's not taking a ton of shots, but he does have double-digit shots in 4 of the last 5 games he's played, and he's bringing back a ton of steals, some blocks there. 2 out of the last 3 games he's played, over 32 fantasy points. And I think at under 5K, he's a guy I'm looking at, especially in this matchup. I think he should still be playing a lot of minutes. So I like Okeke. And Franz Wagner, he's a guy I'm looking at, 5,700. You're not paying an arm and a leg there, but he has the potential to get 16 shots, 15 shots a game. He doesn't always do that, but he's a guy that for tournaments I'm looking at, especially in a matchup that should be not defensive oriented, pretty high over under in this matchup because both teams are just young and just athletic, playing as high or fast as they can here. So Wagner and Okeke are the 2 guys I'm looking at. Suggs, Anthony, Carter Jr., Bamba, all guys I don't hate, but I'm rather going to take the shot at the 2 guys right in the middle of them, on Okeke and Wagner, and hopefully they produce in a matchup that's very friendly. But how about you, buddy?
Yeah, I'm definitely with you there when it comes to this Magic side. I like Franz Wagner. He's in a great spot going up against this Rockets team. He might be overlooked as well, just given his price tag and given the fact that he's often overlooked when the Magic are healthy on this squad. 5,700 is a nice price tag to boot. It's a nice mid-range price tag for him. So I definitely have some shares there that I'm going to be targeting. And then you mentioned Okeke as well, 4,700. Great price tag. He does have great defensive opportunity and defensive numbers, and should get plenty of opportunities for steals against Kevin Porter Jr., who's known to be quite turnover prone as well. So I do like the Okeke call as well. And then I'm also going to be fading Wendell Carter Jr. at 3,400 and Mo Bamba at 4,500. I just don't think that there's enough opportunity for both those guys to get enough run and get enough playing time here and have enough of an impact from a fantasy perspective, from a daily fantasy perspective here in this type of matchup against the Rockets. And therefore, I'm definitely going to be sticking with Franz Wagner and Okeke, as you mentioned as well.
Right, like it. We'll jump to the next game at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the only game at that time. We have Markieff Morris, Oladipo, Kemba Walker, unfortunately, all out for this one. Derrick Rose is doubtful. Nerlens Noel, RJ Barrett, both questionable. Probably RJ Barrett's going to play. We don't have a spread for this one, but this is the Heat at the Knicks, if I didn't say it actually, at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What are you looking at on the Heat side of the ball, man?
Yeah, the Heat are interesting. I definitely have some interest in the Heat here. I like Kyle Lowry at 6,800. He's a guy that he's a veteran. Everyone knows what he can do on this Miami team. Coming off a huge game where he had 49 fantasy points in his last one, where he had a near double-double. And then a few games ago, he did have a triple-double. So Kyle Lowry at 6,800 is again, a fantastic price tag going up against the Knicks. Should be a great opportunity for him to really shine through in that mid-tier price range. I also like, I have some interest in Duncan Robinson at 4,700. He's been shooting really well recently, coming off a game where he had made 6 threes, and also had 5 assists, which is definitely a one-off for Mr. Robinson. But I do like this matchup. Knicks give up a ton of threes, so I definitely have him as well at 4,700 in my player pool. And then I'm probably going to fade Jimmy Butler at 8,900. I think he's a little bit too high priced. He is coming off 2 consistent games against the Hornets and the Mavericks. I just don't know if going up against the Knicks is the perfect opportunity to target him at that price tag. I'd much rather get some cost savings and go elsewhere on this side of the ball. And then the final guy I'm looking at to round out my trio is going to be Bam Adebayo at 8,400. He's been playing really well recently, very consistent, putting up over 44 fantasy points a game over his last 4 games going into the All-Star break. I love Bam here. Going up against Julius Randle and Mitchell Robinson, should be able to dominate both sides of the ball. So those are the 3 guys I'm looking at on the Heat side. Any interest in Bam here?
Some slight interest, but I do like a little bit of Butler better. With the week off, I think that helps him a lot more. He didn't have a great game. Both of these guys were under 40 points in the first matchup, only matchups against the Knicks. Butler was just under at 39. I do think he has some solid ability here, but I do like the call that you made of Kyle Lowry. With the entire week off there, Kyle Lowry should be well rested for this matchup, and I do prefer him as the most on a per point per dollar up target here at only 6,800. I do like Kyle Lowry the most here, but probably not going to go too much at Bam. Nerlens Noel might play in this one, and that is a better defender, a solid defender there. So don't love the matchup for Adebayo potentially, but I do see where you're coming from, and I don't hate him at 8,400 as well. I probably would rather have Butler at $500 more, but we'll see there. I do really like the Lowry call, though. That's who I'm targeting the most. On the other side of the ball there, though, we have the Knicks. RJ Barrett still 6,700. I don't fully love mostly anybody here. If Derrick Rose plays, it kind of puts a dent in a lot of people in that backcourt, but he's doubtful currently, even though he's been practicing lately. So if he's not going to play, Alec Burks at 4,900, Emmanuel Quickly at 4,300, even Grimes at 4,100, all become in play for me because they just said, Kemba Walker, we're not going to buy you out. You're just not going to play all year. So Alec Burks is likely to start at point guard at 4,900, even in a tough matchup. He makes some sense here. He should be seeing 30-plus minutes in this matchup. I don't see a reason why he's not going to be playing 30 minutes. Kemba Walker's been playing over 20 minutes since he's come back in the rotation. So that's a lot of minutes to go around, and Burks should get at least 5 to 6 of those 20 minutes. So Burks at 4,900, even in a tougher matchup, is a guy that I'm targeting very nicely here. He's a guy that out of this entire team that I want the most. Everybody else dependent. If RJ Barrett doesn't play, Burks even becomes even better. Grimes is a guy that I'm very much targeting at 4,100, but we'll see about that. I think Burks is the one guy I can count on the most here, but what else are you looking at over here?
Yeah, I'm definitely with you here. Alec Burks is a fantastic play here for 100. I mean, again, there's so many guys in that mid-tier price range that we've already touched on and continue to touch on, but he's definitely going to be one of the better plays on this Knicks side of the ball. I'm kind of with you when it comes to fading everyone else on this Knicks side. I do have a little bit of interest in RJ Barrett, 6,700. He does have a tough matchup here, coming back from an injury after missing quite a few games. I do like him. Again, it's a risky play to consider him here in this type of matchup, but I think he does have some opportunity to shine along with Alec Burks. And then Julius Randle just priced way too high now with RJ Barrett's return. It might offset some of his monster games he's been having recently. He's been putting up over 55 fantasy points consistently. His price tag is 9,700, which is well deserved. But again, I don't know if this is the perfect opportunity or the perfect game for him to continue to really shine and play well. So I'd much rather have Alec Burks as my number one, and then I have interest in RJ Barrett as well.
All right, I like it. We'll jump on to the next game at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the only one. We have the Philadelphia 76ers taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Timberwolves are on the back end of a back-to-back, so we don't have a spread or injury report for them. But on the Sixers side, we have nobody. There is nobody on the injury report, and we don't have a spread exactly for this game. But I will throw it over to you, my friend. What are you looking at on your 76ers?
So on the 76ers, I'm looking at James Harden as an offer. Again, his first game.
Homer.
No. Honestly, I want to look at James Harden at 10,900, but his price is just too high for me. So I'd much rather go with a guy that's been proven, and that's Joel Embiid. I think the two of them are going to feed off nicely off each other. And they have definitely high upside. And this is a perfect matchup against Timberwolves who are coming back after a back-to-back set. But again, it's really hard to trust any of these new look Sixers, especially now that Harden's in the lineup and expected to play. I'm not going to have too many shares of anyone in terms of cash games. Tobias Harris 7,200 is always a good option, but he's not going to be a guy that I'm going to be targeting too heavily as well. There's just too many unknowns here in the first game to see how Harden and Embiid are going to mesh together in this game against Timberwolves. So I'm okay fading this entire 76ers team here.
And that's a bold call, but I'm kind of with you. Embiid is a guy that I want to target at 11-6. The one game he played against Towns and the Wolves, he had over 70 fantasy points. But at the same time, you mentioned it, Harden's now here. We don't know how these guys are going to compete with each other. I always like to at least see a couple games before I make a decision. With that said, if you're going to target the Sixers, this is certainly a tournament play only. If you're going to go safe, I wouldn't target a team that doesn't, or you don't know how they're going to play with a new superstar, as in James Harden, and how everybody's going to fall in line there. So that's not a cash game type of a play here. If you're going to go Embiid, that's strictly tournament. If we're going to go Harden, that's strictly tournament. This is the best big man that's Harden's ever played with. So I'm super curious to see how that plays out. But I will go Embiid. Harden. I will go Embiid in some tournaments. But I don't know what the outcome is going to be, because obviously this is a different level of player that he's ever played with either. Outside of the big guys there, you mentioned Harris. I can't really go with 7,200 on Harris right now, or Maxey at 6,400. Maybe if you wanted to go with like Niang at 3,800 or Thibault at 3,700, you think he's going to make a couple extra threes, get some extra open looks, and hit them. I can see that, maybe even a Danny Green. But for the most part, I'm with you. I'm going to be fading this team outside of tournaments. I'll take some chances at Embiid and see how he plays with at Harden there and live with the outcome. But I'm with you. I'm really not gonna. I need to see a couple games with these guys at least together before I can feel comfortable going there at their price tags. On the other side of the ball, similar story. I don't really want to spend over 10K for Towns in this matchup. He's not gotten the greatest of Embiid. He only had 44 fantasy points. He did shoot nearly 70% from the field in his one game against the Sixers, but he didn't do really much else. He had 10 rebounds and pretty much nothing else. Edwards, Russell, Beverly, probably not going to spend over 7K for those two other guys. Beverly, more so, 5'2", I don't mind. Vanderbilt, don't mind. But honestly, I'm probably going to leave this game alone for the most part and just attack the other 8 games. What are you looking at over here?
Yeah, it's tough to trust anyone on the second night of a back-to-back. The Timberwolves going up against the Sixers. I do have some interest in Karl-Anthony Towns at 10,200, a guy that should be able to hold his own against Embiid here. It's just hard to trust him, like you mentioned, in this type of game scenario going up against the 76ers. But if there's a guy that I'm looking at, it's going to be Karl-Anthony Towns and Karl-Anthony Towns only likely. Everyone else is kind of going to be off limits for me in this game as well. I have some interest in D'Angelo Russell at 7,300, a guy that should be able to score and play well, especially if he goes up against the defense of a guy like James Harden. D'Angelo Russell should be able to hold his own really nicely. So I do have some shares there, but again, mostly for tournaments only. He's not going to be a cash game play for me at all here. And as far as cash game plays, Karl-Anthony Towns is probably the only guy that I'm pretty safe going with. Everyone else can be overlooked in this type of game. And I'm okay fading this game, even though it could be a high scoring affair.
I like it. And from now on, if any of us like Towns, you have to either give a nice meow or a roar like a lion. If you're very invested in Towns, I don't know why, but you have to give one of those calls. I like it. And just let everybody know that you're in on him, the big cat. But that,
I have no words. But I will hold myself to that. So
all right.
I'll do that.
I like it. All right. We're on the last 3 games of the night, all the late games. First one is at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the Dallas Mavericks at the Utah Jazz. We have a 219 and a half spread, and the Jazz are 6.5 or 6-point home favorites. I don't know why all we have is the late spreads here, but on the Mavs, we have Reggie Bullock, Trey Burke, both questionable. Marquise Chris, doubtful. Hardaway Jr. out. And on the Jazz, we have Jared Butler out. Rudy Gay as questionable. I'll throw it over to you. What are you looking at on the Mavs side of the ball?
Yeah, the Mavs are interesting here. Obviously, Luca Doncic always in play at 11,800, coming off an 84-point fantasy effort in his last game, which was just outrageous. He's been putting up just absurd fantasy numbers ever since they traded away the zinger, Porzingis himself. Luca's been pretty much unstoppable. I don't know if this is a perfect game script for him to continue his torrid affair, but we do know he's going to get extremely high usage here. Despite a tough matchup, Luca is firmly in play, and his price has dropped to under 12K. So I love Luca here, despite a tough matchup on paper. And that's really it for me on the Dallas side of the ball. There's not a lot. I don't want to overthink this one going up against a tough Jazz team. Luca's the only one that has potential to go off, and we've seen can go off for almost 50 on any night in his new offensive arsenal. So I do like Luca under 12K, and that's it for me. Any interest in Luca for you?
Yeah, no, I'm pretty much with you. Luca's a hit or miss here, obviously. It's a tough matchup, but he has been on fire. Now that he's in shape, and he looks very much in shape, he said he wasn't in shape earlier in the year. There was a lot of, he looks like a plumber joke, and he honestly did. I heard that joke, and I couldn't stop laughing because it was so on point. But he's been on fire. With or without Porzingis in the lineup, he's been on fire lately, so I can't fault you for going there. If you have the money, why not? Even if he gets you 56 points, that might be one of the highest on the night. So even at 11K, if you can fill up your lineup and feel comfortable with him in your lineup, why not? Even in a tough matchup. So I am with you there. Outside of him, I don't know. It's a bunch of question marks in a tough matchup. So I'm fully on board with you saying, yeah, I will see what else we have on an 8-game slate, and that's what I'm likely to do here. On the other side of the ball, it's similar story. The Mavericks are one of the best defensive teams in the league with or without Porzingis right now. Jason Kidd has these guys playing on fire. You click on the Utah Jazz and you look at their opponent's rank. It's just red, and they're not like high reds. They're second, first, third, sixth. The Mavericks and the Jazz are two of the best defensive teams in the league, and you can see that on the 219.5 spread. We only have 4 of the 9 spreads, but that's easily the lowest. It's at least 3.5 points lower than the next spread that we have, and the spreads that we don't have probably aren't going to hit that low. So it's going to be a tough matchup all the way around. With that said, if I was going to look at somebody, I know he's a slightly expensive, but Rudy Gobert would be the one guy I'm looking at because that front court isn't the greatest in the Mavs side of the ball. So at 8,400, I think Gobert could have a good game, but he is 80. I don't really want to spend 8,400 for him too. I don't feel too comfortable, especially after his last 2 games were in the 20s. So there's really not one person I'm in love with on the Jazz side of the ball either. Probably going to avoid this game for the most part unless we see people are missing. But how about you, buddy?
Yeah, I'm probably with you when it comes to probably avoiding most of the guys in this game. Donovan Mitchell is the only guy that I'm kind of have some interest in at 8,700. But again, that price tag is a little bit high for me. He is coming off a monster 37-point effort in his last game before the All-Star break. But I don't know how much I trust Donovan Mitchell in this type of game scenario. And then you mentioned Rudy Gobert, 8,400 is also a guy that could be more of a tournament play for me. Other than that, there's no one else I'm really looking at on this Jazz side of the ball.
All right. So we have the last 2 games of the night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The New Orleans Pelicans taking on the Phoenix Suns. We have a 225 game total. The Suns are 8-point home favorites. On the injury report, we have Zion, Nance Jr., Kyra Lewis all out. The Suns are on the back end of a back-to-back, so we do not have an injury report for them. But Chris Paul, Frank Kaminsky are certainly not playing in this one. You can say Abdul Nader, Dario Saric also aren't playing. Campaign, more doubtful than questionable, but he's probably a couple more games away from playing as well. But I'll throw it over to you. What are you looking at on this Pelicans side of the ball?
Yeah, on the Pelicans side, it's hard to avoid the name CJ McCollum. He's been playing fantastic basketball. His last 2 games, he put up over 50 fantasy points, and he is priced at 8,600, so still in that mid 8K range. I love him here, despite going up against the Suns. The Suns are not the same Suns team without Chris Paul on the squad. And it's a second night of a back-to-back for them as well. So I expect them to be a little bit tired here. So I do like CJ McCollum quite a bit at that 8,600 price tag. And then as far as anyone else on this Pelicans team, Jonas Valanciunas at 7,800 is also a guy that is going to come to mind going up against Ayton. Ayton is a guy that can be attacked on the defensive end. And he is coming off a nice monster double-double against the Mavericks, who we just talked about. So I do like him in this game. Those are the 2 guys I'm really looking at. Brandon Ingram has taken a hit fantasy-wise ever since they brought in CJ McCollum. He hasn't been doing as much from a fantasy perspective. So I'm going to continue and fade him until they get more comfortable playing with CJ McCollum in that backcourt. So the 2 guys I'm looking at, like I mentioned, are CJ and Jonas Valanciunas. Any interest in CJ or Jonas here?
Yeah, CJ slightly, but I'd probably go in another direction. But J-Val is actually in 2 games against the Suns. He's averaging 49 fantasy points, so that's value there. Plus, I think there's some upside there. You mentioned it. You can attack Ayton a little bit on the back end of a back-to-back, especially. At 7,800, I do like J-Val a little bit more than McCollum. You get $800 discounts, obviously different position-wise, but that is my favorite target on this team. If he's averaging 50 points against this team in 2 games, the potential in him to do it again at a nice discount in the mid-range there. So he's the guy that I'm looking at the most. Outside of that, you mentioned Ingram is working through it. So is Herb Jones. So is Graham. So is most of these guys. So for me, I'm looking at a lot of J-Val and then leaving the rest to be here. But on the other side of the ball, it is kind of a crapshoot. We know that Chris Paul is out of the lineup. So that is a lot of things to go around here. Devin Booker is going to be playing a lot more on ball. Cameron Payne is questionable for this one. I doubt he's going to play. I think they said he's a couple games away. So that means Aaron Holiday and Elfrid Payton are going to get more minutes here too. Aaron Holiday at 5K is a guy that I can look at. Devin Booker at 9.2, especially in this matchup without Chris Paul, is certainly a guy that I'm keeping my eye on here because there's just so much opportunity, more playmaking for him as well. Those 2 guys especially. And then we'll see who or what happens on the back end of the back-to-back. Does a guy like Jay Crowder sit? Because if he does, Cam Johnson at 4,800 becomes very much in play for me. Torrey Craig at 4K would become upper for me. If something happens like DeAndre Ayton, they say, we don't really need him in this matchup. JaVale McGee, we don't really need him in this matchup. Then that means Bismack Biyombo at 3,300 becomes in play for me again. But right now, Devin Booker at 9,200 without Chris Paul, certainly a guy I'm looking at. And then you look at Aaron Holiday, another guy. And then Cam Johnson, I'm very much keeping an eye on it at his price tag. But what are you looking at over here?
Yeah, you mentioned Cam Johnson. Now that he's an announced starter for the Suns, under 5K, 4,800 is a great price tag. I have a lot of interest in Cam Johnson with no Chris Paul in the lineup. And Point Booker is also a guy, 9,200. The price tag is a little bit high, but I think he has tremendous upside as well in this type of game. So again, curious to see how they're going to play the minutes, like you mentioned, who's going to sit, who's going to be limited at any point. But I do like Devin Booker and Cam Johnson as my 2 favorite plays on this side of the ball. When it comes to the Suns, definitely something we have to monitor throughout the day to see if they make any announcements in terms of who's in, who's out early on. That's going to be a huge factor in how we want to address it. But I do like those 2 names primarily. I'm not going to go too far into the weeds when it comes to the Suns here without knowing who's playing. Jay Crowder could potentially be a good play if he gets additional minutes at 4,600. And then you mentioned potentially JaVale McGee. If we get word that Aiden's out at 4,300, he's also a great play. So again, there's a lot of things up in the air, but I can safely assume that a guy like Cam Johnson at 4,800 and Devin Booker are both going to be firmly in all my cash game potential lineups as well.
Yeah, and both of those guys started. Booker started at point guard in this first game back, and Cam Johnson started at small forward with Jay Crowder starting alongside him. So definitely something to keep an eye on. Maybe they change that and go more conventional, throw Aaron Holiday or Elfrid Payton in there, or when Cam Payne comes back, if he does come back for this game, put him in the lineup. But yeah, I think those 2 guys are very much in play here, and we might be talking about them again very soon. But jump on to this last game. We have the Battle of Los Angeles, the Clippers at the Lakers, which is the same building. But we have a 222.5 game total, and the Lakers are 0-point home favorites because this is a pick'em. We have on the injury report, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Norman Powell, Jason Preston, Jay Scrubb, Avery Bradley, Anthony Davis, Sequoia Dumboya, Mason Jones, Kendrick Nunn, all out. LeBron James, questionable, a.k.a. probable, and Carmelo Anthony as probable as well. I'll throw it over to you. We could just throw this whole game. This is the only game at 10 p.m. It's the Battle of Los Angeles. In this game, what are you looking for on this game, both teams?
Yeah, this is a tough one. It's hard to trust really anyone on the Clippers side in particular. Reggie Jackson, 600, is just a little bit too high of a price tag for me to pay for a guy like Reggie Jackson. Definitely has some upside normally when he's priced in the $500-$600 range. But at that price tag of 600 is just too high of a price for me to pay. Marcus Morris Sr. I have some interest there. 6,400. Going up against the Lakers. They don't have Anthony Davis. I'll probably have a little bit of shares of him here. But as far as anyone else on this Clippers team, it's really too hard to trust anyone. Luke Kennard, we've seen him have some great games recently, and then has other games where he can't find the bottom of the basket. So it's definitely going to be a great matchup potentially of these two teams. But I'm only going to be looking at Marcus Morris Sr. on the Clippers side. Any interest in anyone else on the Clippers side here?
Yeah, like Terrence Mann at 5,400. He's been playing really exceptional basketball lately. You look at his last couple games, 33, then a dud with only 2 points, 12 fantasy points, 46, 37, 28, 36, 26. Playing very solid basketball outside of that one dud game in the last 5 games, 6 games there. At 5,400, he's a guy that I'm looking at again, especially in this matchup. Marcus Morris at 6,400 does intrigue me here, especially without AD. Reggie Jackson has about 40 fantasy points, over 40 fantasy points in 2 games against these guys. I think about almost 42 fantasy points in 2 games against the Lakers. So he's another option, but at 76, I really don't want to go there. I'm more interested in the Morris, like you mentioned, Terrence Mann especially, maybe even Hartenstein at 4,400, but his minutes are very give and go there. But for me, Mann is the guy that I like the most on this one at 5,400. And then on the other side of the ball, we know that Davis is not going to play. Melo is probable. There's some options there with Bradley out of the lineup. LeBron James at 10.6 is an option. Russell Westbrook at 8.5. With a week off, we know what he's done the last couple of years, back end of a season here. So at 8.5, that's a very cheap price tag in a good matchup for him to just take a chance on. In a lot of tournaments, I'm going to take chances on him just because I don't think other people are. And we might get a vintage type Westbrook game where he doesn't settle for 3-point shots and he just attacks. I know if you're watching him play, it doesn't look like he can, but all he has to do is do it for one game after over a week off, not playing since the 16th. So I think we can attack him here and just hope for the best. Outside of that, not really loving it. If Melo plays, I'll look at him at 49. If he doesn't, Taylor Horton-Tucker at 45 is another option for me. But really outside of the top 2 guys, there's really still not much to like on the Lakers side. But how about you, buddy?
Yeah, I'm definitely in alignment here. LeBron James, 10,600 is certainly going to be a great play for me here, especially with no Anthony Davis. We know his usage and his playmaking and his rebounding goes up tremendously here. So I do have interest there. And then you mentioned Russell Westbrook, who's been very consistent, obviously, this season. Everyone knows that he hasn't been the most consistent player for this Lakers team. And his price tag is still hovering in that mid 8K range. We know he's got upside of 40 to 50 fantasy points. We just have not seen that yet. Much of it this season, outside of a few games in late January. So I definitely have some Westbrook interest, but mostly for tournaments only. LeBron James is the only cash game staple here. You can look at guys like Carmelo if he plays 4,900, and other guys like Taylor Horton-Tucker, you mentioned, at 4,500, as well as Malik Monk at 5,600. But all those guys are just too inconsistent for me to trust in normal cash game scenarios.
All right. That does it for the nice 9-game slate, second game back. Before we head on here, buddy, we will throw our favorite plays. Just throw one. We've touched on a lot of people, so if you've been listening to the podcast, you know there's a lot of guys we like. We will try and separate the decimal points for our favorites, and I'll throw it over to you. We'll start from the top because there's not as many high-priced guys on this one for some reason, but we'll throw it to you, buddy. What is your, or I said what? Who is your favorite high-priced play on this slate?
Yeah, there's not a ton of guys that I like on this slate from a high price perspective, but I can't not go LeBron James, 10,600. Backs against the wall. Lakers need to make a push to make the playoffs here in the Western Conference. I think LeBron James is going to put up a vintage LeBron James performance here against the Clippers.
Love it. I will go Point Booker. Just Point Booker, no Chris Paul. He had 12 assists in his first game with no Chris Paul against the Pelicans. Love it. How about your favorite? What do you want to do next? Mid-tier or value? You pick.
Let's go value.
Ooh.
Yeah, let's go value, and you go first.
Oh, me go first. Okay. Well, my favorite value is kind of a hinge play because I really like Daniel Gafford, but that's just if Thomas Bryant, who is questionable, doesn't play. If Thomas Bryant does play, I'm going to go this because I do think this other guy does not play, and I don't think Derek Favors. Yeah, I did say Derek Favors, right? Derek Favors doesn't play on the back end of a back-to-back, so I really like Isaiah Roby at 4,300. Again, I might be wrong. Maybe Favors does play, but I can't see the Thunder playing him on the back end of a back-to-back. So I love Isaiah Roby. I'm going to say he gets 27 minutes. I'm going to say he draws a start, and I'm going to say he gets 4 for 5 stocks in this one, plus whatever else he does.
Fantastic. I love that call. I'm going to go with the first game of the night. We mentioned Cody Martin, 3,800. Should get minutes in the mid to low 30s. Again, assuming he does play and gets those starter minutes, I do expect a pretty nice, sizable performance out of him. He doesn't have a huge upside as far as ceiling goes, but he definitely has a pretty safe floor here, and a price under 4K going to be firmly in play for me.
All right. I like it. And then we'll go to the mid-tier. And you know what? We're going to do a over the Skype rock, paper, scissors for who goes first. I will say rock, paper, scissors. Instead of shoot, we will just say our rock, paper, scissors. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Rock, paper, scissors. Rock.
Wait, hold on. This is very difficult. Let's try this one more time.
Rock, paper, scissors. Rock. I thought I had you. All right, we'll go again. Rock, paper, scissors,
paper,
rock. Damn it. All right. I was hoping you were going to go a different thing. I was going to switch, but I will go with my favorite mid-tier play of the night. And I kind of the last game. The last game we mentioned, I do really like Terrence Mann in this one. The guy's been playing very well at only 5,400. You're not breaking the bank or breaking. I can't talk right now, but not breaking the bank. He's playing anywhere from the high 20s to the low 30 or high 30s in minutes in the last couple games. In this matchup against the Lakers, you can easily score, and I think he's just found a new confidence level. So at 5,400, I'm going to continue riding Terrence Mann here. How about you?
Give me Devin Vassell of the Spurs.
Love it.
Against the Wizards, 5K, great price tag, rising star in this league. Should put up a nice game with plenty of stocks to boot. I love Devin Vassell here at 5,000.
All right, man. Love it. Love the calls. And that does it for our first game back from the All-Star break. I hope you guys had fun. I did. Been a week off. I enjoyed my week off, but I like this podcast. Anything you want to say before we head on out of here, buddy?
Let's get ready to crush the slate. We're back to NBA action, and I couldn't be happier.
All right. I was about to say, about to copy or tell you that for copyright laws, I thought you were going to say, let's get ready to rumble. But you didn't go there quite yet. But I did enjoy it. All right. Good luck, everybody. And we will see you again next Friday. Take care. Peace.